Does everyone in New Hampshire hate people from Massachusetts? Is everybody in New Hampshire a libertarian? And is everybody here white? We're going to talk about those things and a whole lot more. So let's hop in the car, but we don't have to put our seatbelt on because we're going to drive through and unbox the state of New Hampshire. Okay, so this looks pretty charming. A neat little town tucked away into the forest. The kind of place where they know your coffee order by heart and where you can probably get all the local gossip from the maple syrup guy. This is the real America, mister, before it got all screwed up. Of course, nowhere's perfect, and we'll get to that too. New Hampshire sure doesn't look like much, but it's actually the 42nd most populous state. There's actually big cities and stuff to do. I mean, it's not all plaid flannel jacket wearing crotchety gun loving forest dwellers. It's beautiful, it's safe, kind of boring, and very independent. To get a well-rounded view of this state, we need to look at the whole place and then visit each different area. Then we'll know what New Hampshire is really like. This is New Hampshire. As you can see, most of the state's heavily forested with small towns scattered throughout, and most of the population and entertainment is on the southern end of the state. But we're going to begin up here first. Northern New Hampshire is kind of like Alabama with snow. They call this the Great North Woods, or the North Country. Up here it's heavily forested with small towns mixed in between, connected by 2-lane roads where people drive really slow. It borders Canada to the north, so you have quite a smattering of people who speak French. This is Coos County. The communities up here are all very small. For example, the northernmost town, Pittsburgh, only has one school, and there's only 70 kids, ranging from K through 12. Cell service is lacking and neighbors are hard to come by. Shopping's 20 minutes away in Colebrook, and there's no Walmart there, so you probably wouldn't like it. The biggest place to live up here is Berlin, population 9,900 and dropping. Now Berlin's an example of a former mill town in New Hampshire that's fallen on hard times. We'll talk about that throughout this video. Employment and wages have been in decline in former New Hampshire mill towns like Berlin for decades now, as a lot of wood production and wool manufacturing moved into the southern states or overseas. Therefore, in places like Berlin, you have large abandoned mills and an economy that's struggling economically. This sort of collapse is reminiscent of what you might see in Rust Belt cities in the upper Midwest or Rot Belt regions in the South, which lost a ton of agriculture jobs. Some say Berlin is one of New England's Skid Rows. Drugs have also taken hold in these former mill towns. New Hampshire ranks second in the nation for most opioid overdoses per capita, just behind West Virginia, and not too long ago, this was the heroin capital of the nation. To make it worse, low taxes means less money to provide services, which makes the problem fester. Half the population here in North Country earns under $40K a year in salaries, but you don't need much up here anyways, and the unemployment rate's low. They do have internet here, though many people still have DSL. But it's not all sad, rundown areas in this part of the state, not at all. There's a lot of other cities here, places like Lancaster, Gorham, Whitefield, Colebrook, but they're all teeny tiny little places with only a couple thousand people each. People in southern New Hampshire complain about people from Massachusetts, but folks up here love to complain about southern New Hampshire people. This is the most conservative part of the state that's somewhat balanced politically, more on that later, but it's here where the state's motto, live free or die, holds most true. To a New Hampshireite, that means be a responsible, informed citizen and be active in your government, or leave. It's kind of a hands-off approach to government in many areas, except for weird regulations on business. But live free or die means you might actually die behind the wheel, since you don't have to wear a seatbelt or wear a motorcycle helmet, nor do you need car insurance. This is a gun-friendly state, and it's way up here where you'll find the most hicks and rednecks. Anything conquered north is where it gets hick thick. The more north you go, the more redneck it gets. And while you'll find most people up here have mini guns, a majority of folks in this state are armed and into the outdoors. Doesn't matter where you are. Anyway, up here it's very cold for most of the year and it snows a lot, and spring means lots of mud, but it sure is pretty. Summers are very pleasant, save the omnipresent mosquitoes, black flies, no-see-ums, and ticks, and more ticks, and more ticks. It's not very diverse in this region, but it's not a very diverse state. So if you're looking for varying viewpoints and cultures, this isn't it, pal. New Hampshire is 95% white as a baby's butt. There's only 2 other states, both right next door, which are a teeny bit more white. Finally, while the big cities near Manchester complain about the way the state's changing with all the new rules and regulations and the traffic and the higher taxes and all the drug use, people up here in the northern part of the state haven't really seen their state change that much at all, and that's a good thing. Down here is the White Mountains region of the state. The White Mountains are at the northern edge of the Appalachians and are considered the most rugged mountains in all of New England. Mount Washington's here. At 6,200 feet, it's the highest peak in the Northeast. The wind at the peak here blows crazy. Like, for more than 100 days a year here, they get hurricane-force winds. One time it blew 231 miles an hour, which was a world record that stood for nearly a century. There's hiking and skiing and avalanches here. Another feature worth mentioning is the Old Man on the Mountain, which was a unique cliff ledge feature that looked like, well, an old man. Sadly, it collapsed in 2003, and many people were very sad about that. There's a lot of pretty towns up here, but most are tourist traps. Places like North Conway, Lincoln, and Littleton are all picturesque, but small. Littleton has 6,000 people. The other 2 have less than 2,000. Nice people, sort of snobby, but nice. A lot of the people up here still have wood-burning stoves, although the state's been trying to get rid of them because they create pollution. But that didn't work, because New Hampshire people don't like to be told what to do, thank you very much. But what you won't find up here are churches. New Hampshire ranks dead last in terms of religious folks. Less than 1 in 4 people say church is a big deal to them. Then we're going to move over here on the western side of the state by Vermont. This is the Connecticut River Valley. There's a bunch of rivers over here, actually. It's kind of a string of college towns and farms and rolling hills where people also live in the woods. It's pretty rural. This is actually the most liberal part of the state, at least per capita, if you can believe it. It's also home to many of the state's crazy libertarians who want to live off the land and eat squirrels. While New Hampshire isn't culturally diverse, it's politically diverse. The state leans blue lately and hasn't voted for a Republican for president since Bush in 2000, but most of the elections were close. The number of conservatives and Democrats is split about 50-50, but there's more independent voters here than anywhere else. New Hampshire has the 7th most independent voters as a percentage of all voters in the U.S. The state ranks 5th in overall median income and 3rd for college graduates, where about half the population has a college degree. So if you move here, better have some cash and maybe even a college education. This part here is called the Upper Valley. This is Hanover, home to Dartmouth College, an Ivy League school with preppy out-of-state liberal kids. Nearby Lebanon actually has 13,000 people, and that's a lot for New Hampshire. Many parts of the Upper Valley are nice and charming, but run down on the fringes. One good thing about New Hampshire is there's no income tax and there's no sales tax, but the property taxes are huge. The 3rd highest in the country, where you pay 2.2% a year. Property taxes can be crushing and drive middle-income people out of the state. Taxes and politics are something you'd find yourself talking about a lot if you moved here. Some communities in New Hampshire have higher taxes than others, based on a number of factors like how many schools are in the area. Claremont's on this side of the state. It also has a huge opioid problem. It's fairly rural and leans conservative. Keene is another liberal bastion. There's a college here. They began the Free State Project here. Lots of young activist types. It's big enough that it actually has a target. Keene used to be run down and crummy, but they fixed it up a lot. It's actually a pretty cool place. Good people. Right here is New London. There's a bunch of wealthy snobs there. Now over here is the Lakes region of the state in Belknap County. There's 1,300 lakes in New Hampshire, but the biggest is Lake Winnipesaukee. Just about every single town along this lake is super rich, with lots of retirees and second homeowners and old people. Big lake homes with view taxes are all the rage here, except Laconia. It's another former mill town. It's not that nice. Wolfboro is super fancy. Miltonboro is super nice. Meredith is probably the richest part of this whole area. This is where the Granite Staters come for their mini vacays and on mild summer days. If you want lake views and awesome homes, this is a good part of the state for you to consider moving to. A little bit south of the Lakes region is when you get into Merrimack County. Between the Lakes region and Concord, there's a lot of farms. Farming is a big deal here, not only for the state's bottom line, but as part of the state's culture. Corn, apples, livestock, milk, and maple syrup are all a big deal. New Hampshire ranks first in the country for both percentage of farm goods sold at farmers markets, as well as the percentage of organic farm goods sold. Good for you guys. There's also a NASCAR track right here, which is emblematic of this state's shade of neck. Very red. Then, moving south, you come to Concord. This is the state capital. It's a nice place. Don't forget, Concord has a very important place when the presidential elections come around. That's because it's home to the first primary when presidential aspirations either grow or fade away. Concord's getting better all the time. They've cleaned the place up. There's some sort of a technology scene emerging here. Where is here? Where? Here. You're from where? Where? That's what I asked you. Now over here is the seacoast region of the state. This is really hit and miss. The upper east side here in Strafford County is terrible. Perhaps the worst part of this whole state. You don't want to live there. It's been called the drug capital of New Hampshire. Farmington's beat up with a lot of drugs. They call Somersworth Scummersworth. Rochester might be the worst city in this whole state outside of Nashua and parts of Manchester. Now, while Rochester fell into a pit of disrepair, Dover's improved dramatically. It's kind of cleaned up, and the population here's booming now. And then the further south you go along the coast, the better it gets. But get ready to pay big time if you want to live in Rockingham County. Durham is home to the University of New Hampshire. It's super cool and nice and understandably liberal. Exeter, Newfields, Newmarket, Stratham, Rye. This whole area here is really fancy and pricey with a capital P. Hampton Beach is the beach. If you're going to the beach, this is where you go. It's the only real actual beach in the whole state. Hampton's a little bit on the rougher side. They have big parties and concerts here sometimes. But Portsmouth is the gem on the New Hampshire coast. It's super expensive and filled with rich people and high-end shopping. A lot of Massachusetts people come here to load up because there's no sales tax. Portsmouth is an old, historic town with diverse people and a great scenic downtown. Tons of stuff to do for dining and drinking. It has a great snobby food and art scene. Portsmouth has come a long way. It used to be gritty here. Now it's great. There's about 22,000 people here. Oh yeah, and there's some haunted islands way out here off the coast that people take boat rides out to. Nobody lives there. Now you go west of the seacoast area and it's all really nice. Bedroom communities with access to Boston. Until you get to Manchester. Then things get interesting. Manchester proper, as in downtown, is really rough and run down. They call it Manch Vegas. Lots of drugs. Still, there's a ton of stuff to do, and they've worked hard to turn the place around. They turned a lot of the old mills into apartments and offices for new tech companies, so that's cool. The north side of Manchester is nice all the way up to Hooksett, but the west side is rough, boy. Cross the Merrimack and it's shootings and stabbings and lots of druggies. You do not want to live in West Manchester. Now the south end of Manchester and all the way down to the Massachusetts state line is perhaps the richest part of the state, except Nashua. Wyndham, Hollis, Amherst, Londonderry, Bedford, Derry, Milford. Most of this is semi-rural, rich suburbia. Bedford is probably the richest part of this whole state. But Nashua is not that. They call it Trashua or Nashganistan or North Lowell. You don't want to live there. It's really expensive to live in this part of Hillsborough County, even Nashua. Homes are like $350,000, so a lot of younger people who grow up here spend like $1,500 a month on rent until they're old enough that they just move away to places like Keene, or they just head out of the state completely, often going to the south where it's cheaper and warmer. They just aren't building homes fast enough for the younger folks to be able to get in on the action. Way down here at the very southern end of New Hampshire is what you call Massachusetts Light. Lots of people down here work in Massachusetts, but they live in New Hampshire. And then they get dinged on income tax and property taxes. The math is weird. Must be nice to be able to afford that. New Hampshire natives complain about the retired New Yorkers and the Massachusetts transplants, and they say they're turning this place into, well, New York and Massachusetts, with all the new rules and a more liberal way of thinking. Seems like all the new people are trying to make New Hampshire their way. But Granite Staters have no choice. People want to come here. This is the fastest growing state in the Northeast, and the only state up here that's not losing people outside of Maine. But if you move here, don't come here and rip down the woods and complain about the lack of shopping and the small schools. Right now, New Hampshire is a happy bunch. A lot of experts say this is the best state in which to live. They're just the right amount of weird, just the right amount of smart, and just the right amount of historical. They leave each other alone, but they're there to lend a helping hand. They don't like to be told what to do or who to be. That's actually very admirable because in today's America, most of us try all the damn time to tell each other how they should live their lives. New Hampshire people are some of the toughest, smartest, freedom-lovingest folks on the East Coast. It's a culture here of common sense mixed with decency and self-reliance. They have a healthy distrust of government and an educated population to boot. A rare breed in today's America. A rare breed indeed. Okay, so we did a pretty good job of looking at New Hampshire, didn't we? Yes, we did. It's a really great state. Lots of good people. We could have talked about a lot of other stuff, like we didn't even have time to talk about how everybody here hates Massachusetts drivers, or how the Granite State got its nickname to begin with, but We have to go. I think I see a Massachusetts family moving in down the street, and I have to go and run those nanny staters out of town. New Hampshire is really good. They have one beach and lots of woods. But New Hampshire's not for everyone. It's a different kind of fun. There's a race to be on top. The Granite State beats everyone. Except the drugs here, they are bad, making moms here very sad. It's no mystery, living free or die. Live here for a week and you'll understand why. The Northeast is all aware New Hampshire is really rare, and New York wants to retire here, and Massachusetts wants to take over. New Hampshire, where you can ski or live in cabins oh so free. They're so smart with liberty. It's a place that you totally need to see. Special thanks to my friends Anthony and Chase for helping me with this video. You guys are awesome. Hey guys, if you learned something new about America or what it's like to live in America, great. You should think about subscribing and turning on your notifications. You can also click one of these videos or playlists for more. You can also now buy my songs on iTunes and other formats. Click the link in the description. Thanks for watching. And remember, while we all might have different views, we should all be nice to each other and try to make the U.S. a better place in a positive way.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.